Hi, I'm Rosie with Hertsmere TV, and today we're at Hertsmere Civic Offices for a catch-up with Councillor Maurice Bright.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
Welcome to Hertsmere. Good to see you.
How have things been going since we last spoke?
Well, it's been a very busy year or so since we last spoke. Obviously, we were just in the coming out of lockdown, I think, last time, and still understanding what had taken place and what we were doing for our residents to make sure that we could protect them, and as well as looking after services. And now we're coming what they call a post-COVID stage. That means after COVID, although of course it's still very much around. So we're getting our staff back into our offices here. We've started to have meetings where all the councillors can be back in a chamber, which is quite important for debate and for discussion.
How are the council handling COVID?
Well, the council don't handle COVID on its own. We do it with other groups and organisations. We work very closely with the health department at the Public Health Department at Hertfordshire County Council, and with my other role that I have at county, because I'm a county member as well, I'm the cabinet member for public health. So we all work together as a team across all the boroughs and districts, because COVID doesn't know boundaries. COVID doesn't know Hertsmere. It just knows everywhere, doesn't it? So we work to ensure that not just the basics of hands and the social distancing, etc., but the fact that people feel safe coming out into the high street, people feel safe going back to shops, because there is a pent-up demand for people wanting to go out and buy things, and it's important to help save our local high streets as well. So the more people out there, the better. And I think you'll notice, particularly in the nice weather that we've been having through the late part of the summer and the early autumn, there are a lot more people out there. So it's important that we make sure that people feel comfortable and also know that we are prepared in case there are any uplifts and surges in the numbers, that it's a safer time than it was a year ago.
What are the latest developments in Hertsmere?
Well, it's a very busy time for Hertsmere at the moment. Like most other authorities across the country, we're developing what's called a local plan. And the local plan is to put in place more housing, more homes, jobs, opportunities, and businesses, etc., within the borough for the period up till 2038. We know there's a housing shortage, but we also know that so much of Hertsmere is what's called green belt land. 80% of it is green belt. Now, most people think that green belt means it's all open, lush fields that people can walk through with their families and their pets, etc. It isn't all. Some of it's not in a great state and could be developed on. The difficulty we have is that we have built so much in our towns over the last 30 years or so that we don't have as much what's called brownfield sites anymore. Brownfield is where previously developed and you can build on it again. And we know of the gridlock on the roads in the morning, trying to get the school run, trying to get to work, and so on at the end of the day. So what's important is that we come up with ways of being able to build new homes and bring more jobs into the area, because that's great for people who live here and work here, but also that we can bring the right infrastructure in as well. So that plan, it's called a local plan, is now out in its draft format. We've just sent it out. There's a 6-week consultation going on, but we've just extended it by another 2 weeks. So that will be going on till the end of November. And we ask all residents to take a look at www.hertsmerelocalplan.com. Have a look at the ideas, give your views, give your thoughts, give your questions, because we are trying to plan for the future. And we know one thing, well, we know several things, but we know that people like living in Hertsmere. We also know that families of children who are growing up who can't afford to buy their own properties in Hertsmere. So what happens? They either stay living at home, like my 25-year-old son is, or they move out the area. And people say, well, hold on a minute, we want our families to be nearer and around us. We also have, as part of our plans moving forward, the developments and the future expansion of Elstree Studios. So Elstree Studios, which is where they currently make The Crown and Strictly Come Dancing for BBC, is made at Elstree, what used to be known as Film Studios, Elstree Studios. Now these ones are owned by Hertsmere Borough Council. And as part of the government's funding of what they call shovel-ready projects that they're ready to start building with, we were granted last year £6 million to help pay for a new soundstage, as long as we then came up with the rest of the money to build a second soundstage, which the council did. We've actually come up with about 8.5. The government gave us £6 million. And currently there are 2 new sound stages being built at the back of the site where the big brother house was for 16 years. There are going to be 2 big stages which you could film light entertainment, drama, all sorts of wonderful things could be filmed on those stages. And they are going to be open spring 2022. So we have that going on at Elstree. Up the road, Sky is building Sky Studios at Elstree. That's Sky, Comcast and Universal from America. And they're building, I think it's 12 or so sound stages, literally a couple of hundred yards away from where we are. Training is going to be very important, so we're going to be working with Elstree Screen Arts, working with Barnet College, the University of Hertfordshire, to make sure that people get an opportunity to train as well. So the British Hollywood, which is how we used to be known, is on its way back, and I could not be prouder.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell Hertsmere residents about?
I would like to thank Hertsmere residents. I was overwhelmed, and I know everyone was overwhelmed when we received many Afghan families who are staying and are still staying in hotels in Hertsmere. But we have 2 hotels in Hertsmere, and I think there's one in the Groom-Davies Council nearby, where those people who are coming over from Afghanistan, while they're waiting for permanent housing, are being temporarily housed. The first group of Afghan families that came over, they had time to prepare because they knew they were going to be coming over. We knew as well. But then the emergency in the middle of August happened, and we all saw on the news that everyone had to get out as quick as they could. And that meant that those people who came over had literally nothing. I was speaking to a 20-year-old student who came over with her family. She's one of the interpreters, and she said they were at the airport, Kabul, and they were being shouted at, "It's your bag or your life." In other words, there is no time. Leave everything and get on the planes. She also described in detail some of the atrocities that were being perpetrated against people, particularly young women. And it was extraordinarily distressing to hear. But they managed to get them over because then they had nothing. And the huge outpouring from Hertsmere residents of donations and gifts was wonderful because they felt cared about. Imagine you've got to literally leave everything and come across to the other side of the world. These were families, these were people who had been helping the British government, the British country, by being interpreters and working with our armed forces out there. And now their families were at risk and at threat, and they were brought over. I went and visited a couple of weeks ago, and I watched 60 young people of all ages, all in a big room together, like a big class. They're being taught to read English, do maths. It was the best behaved class I've ever been in, and there were 60 of them. And there were people from the local church groups coming to help, and the Hertfordshire County Council were putting on the education services. There was one young lady from Hertfordshire County Council Education Services, and she had a 6-week baby, and she was carrying it in a papoose. And I said, "Oh, you're on maternity leave?" You know, she said, "Yes." She said, "But how can I stay at home with this going on? I really want to do my bit." And it's really touching. And they now have been asked what sort of classes they want. So not just the children, but the grown-ups are getting education classes. The ladies would like to do some Keep Fit classes. They like a cinema evening. It's all very well the men going out and watching the football at Watford, which is lovely, and the boys, but we've got to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to be looked after. And they're just the nicest of people, and it really is, to me, probably one of the most important things that we've done. And moving forward, we have to understand these people of all ages will have seen things that you and I can only ever dream about in our worst nightmares. And I think we have to understand from a mental health point of view that we have to ensure that they get that type of looking after for trauma that will come and hit them at some stage. But these, as I say, these people are wonderful. And I'm very grateful to the contribution that Hertsmere has made, and particularly Hertsmere residents, in their kindness.
Any other things to look forward to in Hertsmere?
Well, we're starting a community lottery. It's not going to be like the European lottery or the one we do weekly or bi-weekly in this country. We're not talking about millions of pounds. We're talking about raising funds via a community lottery for local groups and organisations that may need a bit of extra cash. And we give out, there'll be prizes, but you know that in your £1 ticket donations, you'll be contributing to local good causes. Very important that people understand this is not the council finding a way to cut the grants at our end and let other people play. We're not cutting our grants. We're giving the same amount of money away to local good causes, but this is a bit on top. And as we come out of COVID, we know that there will be local groups and organisations that may need to bring more volunteers in, may need to bring more assistance in, and all the money that people had 18 months ago were giving out may start to dry up. So this is a good way of saying, if you want to be involved in your local community and you can afford a couple of pounds here and there, please take part in the community lottery. You may win a prize, which is lovely, but at the same time you're helping to local groups and organisations. I think that's very important as well.
Any final comments or requests you'd like to make?
This time of year we do what's called the annual canvass, and that means that every home will get a little card coming through, if it hasn't already, which asks people to make sure they've registered to vote. Voting is very important. It's a hugely important right, and it's only when you get to see the situations that other people in other countries don't have that ability, you remember even more how important it is that we make sure we remember we live in a democracy. For me, I think that as I get older, I know that the younger generation coming through, this is going to be their borough, this is going to be their area. And we're doing some really important things, as I've mentioned, about the local plan, housing for the future and so on. And what I really want is to get young people involved in the conversation. And the way they can do that is to make sure they're registered to vote. And I think it's important they do so. So make sure wherever you're living, if you're over 18, actually you'll be 17, just to register, please make sure that you've either registered or your parents have registered for you. But do take part, because ultimately we hand this place over to you and we think you should have a say in it. So please make sure you're eligible to vote. Vote whenever you can. We don't all have to agree on everything, but it's important that we use that opportunity. Can I also take this opportunity to thank Hertsmere TV. I know what you guys are trying to do, trying to get the message out there for local community television. And I do think that it's something that we really do need to have. The more we talk as a community, I think the better we all get on and the more we understand ourselves and each other. So I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing and hopefully speak to you again very soon. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you.